Are you a fan of massive AoE skills that blow enemies away? Or a fan of being unkillable even in hard mode? Or even a fan of providing your team some great support and shielding while also being extremely mobile? Well, lucky for you, Ajax exists, and seeing that he's been my main through the entire story and now the hard mode, I think it's time to share my build that I think every single Ajax main should be playing. If all those factors is something that you consider when you're building a character, then this build is insanely good for that. So let's dive on into it and let me show you how to build it. Now keep in mind down in the description there will be timestamps if you don't want to like see certain parts of it or skip to whatever you want, but we're going to quickly go over Ajax himself so you guys know how he plays, because I do notice some players don't play him correctly or understand his kit. So I will briefly explain it to you. First off, we have Event Horizon. This is his passive. Long story short, what this does is whenever you use multiple skills in your combination of your skills, you will build void energy, and whenever you consume it after the third bar, you will basically enhance the next ability. Your little bar will glow, so you'll know that next ability will be enhanced. The reason why this is important because the enhancement does something different depending on the ability that you enhance it with. So for example, our orbit barrier, which primarily scales off of defense then HP, will actually get a like reflect effect to it, meaning enemies will shoot at you and deal damage to themselves. This offer a lot of defense as well as offense. Your void walk, on the other hand, which does stun and deals damage naturally, will increase the effect of it, which means it'll do more damage and you'll have a bigger AoE. So really good when it's enhanced. Your expulsion will knock back and it will do a increased damage and range whenever it's enhanced, giving you some more options. And then of course your hypercube is going to give you tons of AoE coverage for your team. And then when enhanced, this is going to grant firearm attack as well as explosive attack to your allies, meaning if you use this correctly, you can give your Glay or your Lepic some tons of damage so that you can like be a support. The great thing about Ajax is he's very versatile because he can do offense, he can do defense, and he's just usable for every team. That is the basis of Ajax. Hopefully you understand how he plays now. Let's move on to the equipment in the inventory. So let's quickly go over his inventory. So for his weapons, we're using the Tamer. This is the meta weapon in the game right now because this is a boss killer and it is super amazing. But I'm rolling on this now. Previously I was like a crit build. Now I'm a weak point build because it is fundamentally better. You can still do crit, but I think weak point is much better. And what we're rolling on this is firearm attack, weak point, and ideally on the last one we'll get some type of elemental one, but this is what we're currently using. Looking over the mods quickly for those of you who want to switch over to the weak point build, we're using weak point detection, action and reaction, rifling reinforcement, weak point sight, and then we're using a chill enchantment. This is only because like we were facing someone who was weak to it, but kind of like swap this in and out depending on what you need. And ideally, if you don't want that, you can use something like weak point quick fire, or you can use rapid fire insight. These are other good options. And if you want to use your crystallization, I will use it on the 3 slot or a malachite slot because this will give you some reduction on this one, and this will be on literally every build. So this will be your #1 priority, which is the malachite slot. So make sure you do that if you do decide to crystallize your weapon. Our other 2 weapons literally don't mean anything because we didn't do anything with them. We have a weapon upcoming that's going to be really good for the future perfected build, but for now just use whatever you want. The main thing is going to be the Tamer. Quickly, let's go over the stats. We have 36,000 firearm attack, we have 11,000 skill power, we have 60,000 defense, we have 327 shield, and that is very much on purpose, so be mindful of that. And then we have almost 16,000 max HP, which is super nice. And then we have a fairly low max MP of 322. This is actually pretty okay for us, but these stats are ideal. You want to prioritize defense followed by HP. That's what's really important, and then firearm, and then skills. Super good. Let's move on to the actual components. Now for our components, we're using the Annihilation set. The Annihilation set can be farmed from the Devourer. This can be used all on Glay as well as Ajax, so if you like those 2 descendants, this is actually good for both of them, so I would highly recommend you farm them. The reason why we're using the Annihilation is because it gives skill duration, which is actually good for Ajax, and then whenever you go to whenever you take damage proportional to your HP, your max HP, you'll get extra damage on your firearm attack, which is actually good because he's really a firearm attacker when he's facing off against bosses. And since we have very low shielding, we're going to go to flesh really easy and start lose health more, and we'll be able to get like benefits from it. So super good. That's the best we have for Ajax in my opinion, but you can do two pieces if you want, but for me I like the 4-piece set. Quickly looking at the substats though, for the auxiliary power, this is going to give us fire resistance and module drop rate increase because I really like having the ability to defend myself and also get some benefit out of farming. So this one is good for that. For this one, we have show resistance as well as max MP. We actually kind of need the MP, so that one's pretty nice. Then for this one, we have defense and electric resistance for our memory. This is super good. Defense is super powerful and super valuable, so we definitely want that. And then for our processor, we have equipment drop rate increase and toxin resistance, legendary. Roll on it, so super good. One thing you will notice when you look at these, they have toxic, it has electric, it has chill, and this one has fire. We cover all our resistances because we want to stay alive. If you're wondering why you're dying all the time, it's probably because you don't have resistances on these. These are super important, and you slap an antibody in on your character and nothing can kill you. I mean, it can, the bosses are strong, but you're less likely to die. Once again, this can be farmed on hard mode Devourer, so go ahead and get a team together and go take them down. This took me like an hour to farm them, so pretty easy to get. For our reactor, we're using the materialized mechanic reactor. The materialized reactor can be farmed here at the large nuclear reactor in the sterile lens in the classified area. This is one of the best missions in the game generally for Kypher shards, as well as just getting those to drop. I would highly recommend it. Super fast mission, and it gives you a lot of stuff, so run over here and get it. What we got on this one and what's ideal is we got non-attribute skill bonus and tech. A lot of our skills, our damaging skills are tech, and everything else scales off non-attribute, so it works really well for us. And then we have skill cooldown, which is super good, and then dimensional skill power boost ratio. We don't necessarily want that. We would prefer like tech there, but this is what we got for now. We're going to improve it later. For our optimization condition, we're going to get a weapon in the future that actually goes there that's going to be really good. We don't have it yet, but that's going to be for the perfected build. But this is what I would use for my reactor and my external components and stats that you should aim for. Finally, we are in the Descendants modules, and I want to say something really quick. Two things. First and foremost, this build is a build in progress. While it is very strong and it's going to be good enough to pretty much do all the content in the game, is nowhere near perfected, and there's so much more that you can get out of this build that we're going to talk about in the future video in about 2 or 3 days. So just keep that in mind. And secondly, because this is still like in the process of being built, some of these things may or may not make sense to you depending on how you look at it, because generally speaking, no one's building Ajax like how I'm going to build him in the future. So it may not make sense because no one's going to do it. I'm building a pretty solid build, and these parts are really important to it. So keep that in mind, that while it may be a little confusing now, some of it is going to actually make a lot of sense. So trust in the process. First things first, let's go from left to right and talk about each of the individual pieces. We have kicking. I just like kicking. You can use literally any melee skill that you want. But you want to get that to 10 because it's going to give you 10 to your module capacity. If you put a like mod slot thingy in there, like the crystallization catalyst, you will get 5 additional, so it will bring your max to 85, which we're going to probably do tomorrow. Alternatively, if you don't want to use melee, you don't care for it, you can use a grappling hook. I didn't know this. Shout out to the chat for letting me know this. But you can use a maneuvering move. There's one that increases the range by a bit. There's one that gives you 3 charges, and this one lets you like grapple to anything in the air. You don't have to like click on anything. It's really cool. For our first module, we're using increased HP. This one is pretty self-explanatory. We want to stay alive, and our shields scale off of HP, and some of our future damage will scale off of HP as well. So this is actually really valuable. Next, we have skill expansion. This is what's giving our shields such huge range, giving our orbit barrier huge range, giving us our huge stomp radius whenever we do our little slams. This is the only skill expansion I think you need. You can go overboard with it if you want, but I think in terms of like saving on points, this is ideal. Next, we have nimble fingers. We want to keep our cooldown as low as possible because we want to use our spells to like put shielding and deal AoE damage. We're not like the fastest of casters, and being able to get skills off of cooldown really fast is going to be ideal, so nimble fingers is good. Next, we have increased defense. Again, defense is very important because most of our skills primarily scale off of it, and some of our future skills will scale off of it as well, so that's super important to have. Next, we have Spear and Shield. This one gives us defense as well as skill power. A very powerful defense skill. Just keep in mind you could only use one defense skill, and this is the one I chose. I think there's another one that does like skill power amplification. I think this one is better overall, but use the other one if you want, but Spear and Shield is what I use. And finally, for our HP specific modifier, we have HP amplification. This one gives us 227% HP, and we lose 36% of our max shield. Our max shield is like 300, so we lose 100 shield. Big whoop. We get a ton of HP, a ton of future damage, and a ton of survivability. So super good. That is all for the Descendant. Let's wrap this video up. And there you have it. That is my unkillable Ajax build. This build is a very strong build for pretty much doing all the content in the game. You're going to primarily scale off of your weapon attacks to fight void bosses. You're going to use skills to pretty much obliterate anything that isn't a boss. And honestly, the build is going to be one of the best builds that you can use for Ajax, especially if you're looking for some direction on how to build them. If you are looking for more direction beyond Ajax, or just want some questions about Ajax or the future build, just keep in mind we're going to be covering that and everything the first Descendant, so maybe consider subscribing so you can stay up to date with that. I also live stream every single day over on my Twitch channel. We do like 12-hour streams a day. Come hang out. A few hundred of us just kind of sit there and just chat, so feel free to jump in. It's called the First Descendant Fervor. I'll have it linked down in the description, so come hang out. And just like that, guys, I'll see you guys in the next First Descendant video very soon.